Hello everyone. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel, depending on if you are a first time or returning viewer. Today I am doing my review for Love is Blind Season 3. If you see me looking off to the side, I do have my notes on my phone. Alright, so let's get started. This is actually the first season of Love is Blind that I have watched from start to finish. For those who do not know, the whole purpose of Love is Blind is for couples to get to know each other in what they call the pods, so they don't see each other until they make a decision that they're going to get engaged and ultimately married. Which couple do I want to do first? We're going to jump right in with Alexa and Brennan. So out of all the couples this season, I would have to say that Alexa and Brennan made the absolute most sense to me. I really feel like their connection was not one that I questioned. So sometimes what can end up happening is you might see individuals who are attracted to more than one person. So then they have to choose, okay, which person would I actually see myself marrying, as opposed to, oh, I think this is the person that I want to be with, but what if I make a mistake? So with Alexa and Brennan, Alexa didn't have any backup plans. And although Brennan was starting to connect with Colleen, the moment he realized that he wanted to be with Alexa the most, he immediately told Colleen, hey, this is what it is. I'm gonna, pursue a connection with someone else. He didn't waste her time. He didn't beat around the bush. He didn't make her feel like, oh, we've got a shot at something here. He did not do that. I do commend Brennan for that, because time cannot be replenished. And unfortunately, I feel like in these dating reality TV shows, whether it be Love is Blind or Married at First Sight, sometimes we see a lot of people just wasting time with connections that they know are not going to work. So I'm glad that Brennan did not do that. I definitely respect him for that. Now, as far as Alexa was concerned, as I said before, she didn't have any backup plans, so there was no worries there as far as her having to tell someone else, hey, I'm not going to be with you, I'm going to be with Brennan. So, sure that made for a much easier time for Brennan when it came to him going back to, the side of the house that the men were staying on. He didn't have to worry about competition or anything like that. So as far as Alexa and Brennan are concerned, I admired the fact that they had those heavy-hitting conversations around, differences in their family, differences in their communication style. One thing that I was a little bit concerned about was when Alexa said, her family, they don't really pull punches, they don't sugarcoat things, they're very blunt with each other, and even like with the children. And so when she describes how they talk to the kids in their family, I could see Brennan bristling a little bit, like, I don't think I want someone talking to my kids the way that you say your extended family talks to the children in your family. So, that would be something that would have to be, addressed beforehand, for sure. One of the difficult things to do when it comes to relationships and boundaries require advanced planning. So if you wait until you're in the heat of the moment, or you wait until you're on your last straw to mention to someone something that they're doing is, hurting your feelings, it's triggering you, you don't appreciate it, and you'd like for them to stop, that conversation might not go as well as you think it will, because when you're trying to set boundaries in real time, that's just not realistic. And I think that is why it's easier to have cutoffs. So I'm glad that Brennan and Alexa were having that conversation before he even met her family, and he expressed his concerns around, there's a certain way that I just don't want other adults to speak to my children before they even have them. So kudos to them for that. Starting to have those difficult conversations and outlining their expectations early on. Another thing that I liked was Alexa's father was very upfront and honest with Brennan, where he said, Alexa is, she's a bit of a princess. So if you're not going to be able to provide her with a certain quality of life, I just want to know, how are you going to adapt to that? Instead of Brennan coming across as though he were intimidated or feeling like he was not good enough for Alexa because maybe he could not provide her with the same quality of life that her father has given her, which I'm sure her father had to work many years to get to that level of financial stability. He was saying, I'm going to be there for her, I'm going to support her, and give her the best quality of life possible. That does not mean she's going to be living in mansions and she's going to have a gold-plated pool or she's going to be continually eating off of silver spoons. It just means she's going to have a place to stay. She is going to have financial security with me, and I am going to take my role as her husband and her covering very seriously. So Brennan he's just awesome. Out of all of the men, I would say it was easiest for me to like him without feeling like, oh, there's a red flag there. I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned about that. I think he's playing games. I don't think he's here for the right reasons. So that was refreshing to see. So when it comes down to, the wedding, thankfully, everything worked out well. Through this entire season, they got along with each other's family and friends. They had the open and honest conversations with each other. And so when it was time to get married, they both said yes. So congratulations to Alexa and Brennan. I wish you many years of happiness, longevity, success, and just all of the great things that I believe you deserve within a marriage. All right, moving on. I think I'll just tackle the next couple that said yes on the wedding day, which was Matt and Colleen. Initially, in the pods, one thing that I noticed about Colleen that was a little concerning to me was her response to rejection. Brennan had connected with her before he really honed in on Alexa. And instead of wasting her time, as I said, Brennan was very upfront with her, very honest, and told her, I'm going to pursue a different connection. I'm sorry, I will not be having any further dates with you. And Colleen just seemed so deflated. And I felt, bad for her because I was thinking, okay, it seems like you really want this, but I hope that Colleen wasn't seeing one person, or actually in her case two, because the same thing happened with Cole. Cole connected with her as well, but chose someone else. I hope that Colleen wasn't taking it as there's no one out there for me, or I'm just a terrible person because I've had two dudes tell me no in this experiment, versus, hey, at least the people that are not for me are weeding themselves out, so I don't have to do all of the legwork around, well, is this really going to work or is this not, and feeling like your time is wasted and feeling like your emotions have been played with. So that was something that I was a little concerned about. Is she going to be able to bounce back when it comes to rejection, or maybe her expectations and reality, they don't align? Just something I thought of. So ultimately, she and Matt had a very strong connection, and he was very open with her about, his past. Unfortunately, Matt was married prior to Love is Blind season 3, and she cheated on him. Not only was she unfaithful, but a pregnancy also resulted from that infidelity. So while they had plans to, try to work things out and possibly reconcile, whatever that was going to look like, once she found out she was pregnant with the other man's child, that was pretty much it for their marriage. They went ahead, got a divorce, and Matt, I could tell, was crushed by that. I'm trying to remember if he said that they were high school sweethearts. Possibly. Even if they weren't, that's still crushing. You took vows to this person with the plans of, this is my forever person, I'm going to build a life with them, we're going to have a family together. And family doesn't always mean having kids. There are some couples who do not want to have children. They're cool with being the fun aunties and the fun uncles. But, husband and wife, I look at that as a family. So I just want to put that out there. But yeah, it had to be devastating. So of course, Matt is coming in with the hopes of being able to love again, but he's not playing the game with blinders on the way he might have if he had never experienced betrayal in a previous relationship, especially one as serious as a marriage. So one thing that I, was thinking as far as a takeaway from Matt and Colleen's relationship was it doesn't matter how great of a person you are. It doesn't matter how wonderful of a person, your partner is. If you have struggled with, a betrayal as serious as infidelity, especially one that results in a pregnancy, and so by default now your relationship is over, that is not something that you just get over within 24 hours. It doesn't matter that he signed up for Love is Blind and maybe did whatever work he needed to do in order to feel that he was ready for this experiment. The hurt is still there. And so are, the concerns if he were to see red flags. So when it comes to like Colleen's approach with being so honest about her previous connection with Cole in the pods and him being the typical physical type that she would go for once all of the couples met at the vacation after they make their decisions as far as who they're going to marry. It's one thing to not have any secrets in your marriage and in your relationship, but it's another to not have a filter either. I don't think that it's ever a good idea to tell the person that you're engaged to, dating seriously, or married to, hey, you're not my physical type, but you know who is? That guy over there who's within the vicinity. Because Matt already went through the hurt of being cheated on. And we don't know what that other man looked like. So if it's one thing if his ex-wife had a type and the guy she cheated with looked just like Matt. But it would probably be even harder if the guy looked nothing like Matt, because then he's thinking, okay, so what you're pursuing, I don't think that level of honesty is the best idea. When it came time to, the reunion, one thing that I noticed was Colleen seemed a bit on edge. And maybe she was just nervous because no matter how many times you film, it's one thing to film in the context of the experiment, and it's another to film after maybe taking some time off after the season has wrapped and then coming back and doing the reunion, and everything that you have said and done during the season is fair game for questioning. So maybe that was it. I don't know. I just really hope that Colleen can, continue to be herself. So if you are a happy-go-lucky, bubbly type of person, you're a social butterfly, it's not reasonable for your spouse to expect you to not, be sociable and to not connect with other people and form friendships, respectful ones, outside of your marriage. So I don't know what was going on as far as Colleen looking pretty nervous, and of course her wanting to make sure that she apologized again and said there's no doubt that she's in it for real with Matt, and apologizing for the times that her honesty around her attraction to Cole could have hurt him and made him question her loyalty to him. So yeah, that's pretty much the only concern I would have. So the takeaway, use a filter when it comes to your honesty around your attraction to other people, especially when you are talking specifically to the person that you're with. But also don't dim your light and become a different person for the sake of pleasing your spouse, because that's just breeding ground for resentment later on down the road. When it came to their wedding day, I would say my favorite memory was once they said yes, like both of their parents kissed each other. So I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Thought that was nice. Nice little touch. Yeah. But betrayal takes more than finding love again and a wedding to get over. So I hope that Matt will continue to heal and that his trust in Colleen, and he will see that she really is for him. I hope that that trust will grow and they can, continue to make this work, because ultimately they chose each other. They had opportunities to choose other people and they did not. So that says a lot. Moving on to Bartise and Nancy. So similar to Colleen, the main thought that I had in regards to Bartise and Nancy's relationship was the same thing as far as Colleen with Cole. Don't tell your fiance that another woman is your physical type and that other woman looks nothing like your fiance. Because Nancy, she highlighted that during one of the conversations and said, I will never be your type. Like, it doesn't matter what I do, I'll never look like Raven. And she even went so far as to say, well, go ahead and pursue your type and see how that works out for you. Has it worked out for you thus far? No, it has not, because the woman that he proposed to doesn't look anything like the type he would normally pursue. So that means he wasn't landing his physical type in the past. And I thought, go ahead, Nancy. She wasn't saying it in a way that was cruel or trying to attack his confidence or his self-esteem. It's just, hey, this is what you're used to pursuing, and yet you're here with me now. So what does that say? Maybe your type really does not work for you outside of something superficial, not anything lasting. Another thing that I found to be quite manipulative on Bartise's part was after he and Nancy had that very in-depth conversation around the hot topic of their stances on abortion and reasons why Nancy might be open to an abortion in the case that they were to have a child who was going to, experience a lot of life challenges due to, complications during their development within the womb. That's a very sensitive topic to explore. And the fact that she was willing to do that with him shortly after, they moved in together, that says a lot. Like, she, provided her reasonings and, said what she needed to say and was honest about it. She didn't, flip-flop or try to tell him what she thought he wanted to hear. I didn't like the blindsiding when he mentioned that topic in front of his parents and his sister on the very first time that they were meeting Nancy. It just felt like maybe Bartise was hoping that his family would respond in such a way that it's like, well, if you marry her, we're gonna have a problem. We do not support this. And then he could just blame the demise of their relationship on, well, I can't marry someone that, my family doesn't think I should marry, so oops. But they didn't. His family did not, rip Nancy to shreds for her beliefs and for her, opposing views on abortion. So then it's like, okay, well, now what do I do? Now how do I get out of this? And that's just how it came across to me, in my opinion. But Nancy, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. In the pods, when Bartise told her that he was 25 years old, she paused like, ooh, I don't know about this. And she said, when I think of 25, I think of games. Ding, ding, ding. Because nothing but games were played this season between Bartise and Nancy. He didn't really seem to have the same level of depth when it came to the relationship that she did. It's a bit upsetting to see because, why waste the time? If it's not going to be a resounding yes, and the moment you're looking for ways out of the relationship, just say no. If it can't be a resounding yes, it's a no. Just go ahead and say no. Don't waste any more time. Don't waste your own. Don't waste somebody else's. So I don't know what that contract at Love is Blind was looking like, but I don't know if that influenced him to stay and try to stick it out. or if he really thought it could work, but then got to the altar and felt like, yeah, actually, it's not. And I felt bad for Nancy because she had said, the one thing that I asked you not to do, you did. I said, just do not blindside me. Like, if it's going to be a no, okay, it'll be a no, but don't blindside me. And that's exactly what he did in her experience. So, yeah. And then at the reunion, one thing that stood out to me as far as Bartisa's explanation of the ending of their relationship was the phrasing. He had said he was caught up in how they decided to cut ties. And I thought, no, you guys did not mutually agree to cut ties. You told this woman no at the altar, and she said, well, if it's a no to marriage, it's definitely a no to anything else. We will not be working on anything. We will not be dating outside of this process to see if, with more time, we might be the one for each other. No, it's a no. You told me no at the altar in front of our family and friends, so it's no forever. Another thing that definitely gave me like the prickly sensation was at the reunion when they were questioning Bartisa about him, moving on in his dating life. Shortly after the season wrapped, he said, well, if I don't cope the right way, then, it's just, I don't even remember what else he said after that sentence, to be honest with you, because I was stuck on the if I don't cope the right way. And I'm thinking, well, if word on the street is there was footage of you on social media with another woman the day after you told your fiance you're not going to marry her, that's not coping in the right way, or is it? I said all that to say it bothers me when I hear people use these popular buzzwords when it comes to mental health. Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't have to use mental health related buzzwords to explain away why you didn't want to marry Nancy. You didn't want to marry her. You didn't tell her you didn't want to marry her until after you were at the altar. That was a decision that you made. Okay. Stand 10 toes down on the decision that you made. You decided to tell her no at the altar. Whether you knew beforehand that you were going to do that or you just realized it right at the altar, it doesn't matter, because everyone has the right to choose who they want to be with. So I'm not knocking Bartise for choosing not to marry Nancy. The issue is she didn't see the no coming. It just felt like he was caught up in spinning this narrative of being a victim. And I'm not saying that the breakup for him wasn't potentially painful. It just seemed odd that he was the one saying all of the things around coping the right way and being so, caught up in how he and his fiance decided to end things when he was the one that said no. She said yes, and he then said no. But yeah, I would say a takeaway from Bartise and Nancy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have, deal breakers. In this case, Nancy was unsure about being with someone younger than her. If that's your deal breaker, stick with that. It's okay for you to be selective when you're dating. Pick what you like. This is your life. This will be your relationship. You're the one that's going to have to deal with the outcome of choosing to date or not date someone. So pick what you like. And same thing when it comes to, looks. If you know that looks are something that you consider to be as important as a deal breaker, do not go on an experiment like Love is Blind or Married at First Sight where that choice is taken from you. And now you're trying to pretend or force yourself to make something work that you don't really want. Because that's not fair to you. It's not fair to the other person. And I would say it's even unfair to those who were willing to be in this experience because you took their spot and you weren't willing to commit to the experiment in its entirety. Moving on. The last two couples. I want to talk about SK and Raven first. So initially, yeah, Raven was definitely she's pretty popular in the pods. But she chose SK. And I remember thinking to myself, watching her in the pods with Bartise, Bartise had a similar reaction to Colleen. Even though he told Raven that he would be pursuing his connection with another woman, so he would be telling her our journey here as far as the pods, will end today, he seemed a bit deflated when Raven said, yeah, like it's a no for me too. And I'm thinking, oh, that should have been good, right? Both of you are choosing other people. Anyways, I'm glad that Raven was more of the slow moving type of individuals when it came to this experience. Because ultimately, she didn't know SK that well. So she wasn't diving in head first and telling him on, their first time in person or even at the time of the proposal that she loved him or anything like that. And she wasn't all over him as far as physical affection was concerned once they finally did meet each other in person. She was slow moving, and I think that was a good choice to make, because anything that's worth having, it's worth working for, it's worth building on. Jumping straight in head first with blinders on, it doesn't make for like the long-lasting love that you're hoping for. When it came to SK, I was a little bit leery of him, and I couldn't figure out why. So ultimately, when his family was so on board with him doing this experience and they were so supportive of him and Raven, I thought, okay, great, this is wonderful, especially because Raven's family was saying, we don't agree with you doing this process, so therefore we can't be as supportive as you would like for us to be because we just don't agree. So we're not in support. So she was getting that support from SK's family, specifically his mother, and I thought that was wonderful. Started to, kind of, relax a little bit as far as those initial concerns about SK, where I was like, something about him just doesn't seem right. But on the wedding day, when SK told Raven, no, he would not marry her in front of all their friends, their family, and cameras, I was thinking, okay, what's going on? And at one point I thought, you know what? Maybe that was a noble choice, because he knew that he still had to finish graduate school and he was going to school in California, whereas Raven wasn't open to moving to California. She would be in Texas. And while I have been in a long distance relationship, I have not been in a long distance marriage. So I don't know how that works. I'm sure that there are couples out there, for whatever reason, they have made it work. If that's just how the cards were shuffled for them, I don't have that experience. So I thought, maybe this decision is actually for their good. And then if they decide to stay together or decide that they want to continue dating and get married at a later date, then they have more time to get to know each other. So that could be good. That could work out. And it seemed like that's what they were doing until the case of the ex. So after the reunion, where, they declared that they were still dating each other and working towards, building a lasting relationship that possibly could lead to marriage someday, even though they said no on the show, one of SK's former girlfriends resurfaced with receipts, y'all. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say I feel badly for Raven, because she didn't experience humiliation once on a public platform, but twice in this relationship. One thing that's really not fair is to be in a relationship with someone and perhaps you're giving your all, even if it might not look like it on the outside, because people don't know you on the outside. The only people who know what's going on in that relationship in depth are the people that are in that relationship. So, some people might say, oh, well, she didn't seem that into him anyway. We don't know that. And whether she was head over heels or not, it's still not fair to hear that your boyfriend, someone that you almost married, is potentially still out here entertaining other people. Now, if that ex that came up with those receipts on social media was just having a difficult time letting go, fine, but the damage is already done. I will say that SK did make the right choice by choosing not to marry Raven that particular day, because if they had gotten married and then those receipts came out while they were legally married, that just would have been that much more complicated of a situation to try to exit. Definitely hoping for the best for Raven as far as, healing from that, because I can't imagine how upsetting that has to be. As far as SK, you did the right thing by telling her no. So in a sense, you saved her by not marrying her. So thank you for that. Moving on to our final couple, Zanab and Cole. Once again, takeaways here. Can you guess what I'm going to say? Do not tell your significant other that they are not your physical type that you would tend to go for. Zanab admitted that she had her own insecurities that she needed to work through. So she asked a question that she wasn't prepared to hear the answer for. She asked Cole to rate her, and that didn't work out so well when he gave her a 9 versus a 10. And when she asked, was there anyone else in this experience that he would consider a 10? And it happened to be Colleen. Okay, so my camera decided we're done. So I'm just gonna finish this on my iPhone. During this season, I just felt like once Cole was, I didn't see him as being brutally honest, but once he delivered unfiltered honesty about looks to Zanab, she never really bounced back. And while I can commend her for being 100% honest, that she has her own insecurities that she does need to navigate, even if she was the most self-assured person, I still don't think that she would want to hear her fiance tell her, hey, you're a 9, but this other woman is a 10. Chef's kiss, I think it's interesting how some people think that honesty is so important that they don't consider pairing it with compassion. They don't consider pairing it with thoughtfulness. So instead of being thoughtfully honest or being compassionate while you're delivering honesty, some people believe that they should just get brownie points because they're being honest and they're not lying and they're being truthful. There is a way to be honest about your opinion, your feelings, and be honest in your reactions without slamming someone. Now, I don't think that was Cole's intent. I don't see Cole as mean-spirited. I do see that as, I guess, what would they call that? An oversight, just a difference when it comes to intent versus impact. He didn't intend to hurt her, but her feelings were still hurt when she found out that he didn't see her as a 10, but he saw Colleen as such and freely gave her the 10 when it came to rating. This applies to men and women. You don't have to tell the person that you're with that they're not your physical type and you would typically go for somebody else. Like, you don't have to do that. That's something that you don't have to be brutally honest about. Like, I understand And I completely respect people who decide that they don't want to keep secrets from the people that they love and they're in a relationship with. But some things you just don't have to say. And perhaps that's just a lesson that is learned and applied with time and maturity. So I don't see Cole as mean-spirited, more of the, that's something that you're just gonna have to grow to learn. When it came to the wedding as well as the reunion, I was highly surprised at Zanab's approach. I'm sorry. I don't understand why anyone would stay in a relationship where they felt like the person they're with is single-handedly destroying their confidence, negatively affecting their self-esteem, and you go all the way through this experience until the wedding day, and then that is the occasion that you choose to tell them, not only will I not marry you, but let me also raise you for filth in front of our loved ones. Two things can be true. Zanab shouldn't have to feel like her forever love is hurtful. She should not have to try to be someone that she's not, because she did say, Cole, I will never be the woman that I believe that you should marry. And also, the wedding day did not have to be the occasion where she tells him that. Cole seemed genuinely blindsided by not only what she was saying, but also the intensity with which she delivered it. Her friends were clapping after she pretty much read him for filth. That was a lot. That was very difficult for me to watch. I couldn't imagine being left at the altar. I also could not imagine my spouse humiliating me on the way out by telling me, hey, you've destroyed my self-esteem. It's really hard to see someone as anything but a monster if they're described as destroying your self-esteem. By the time the reunion came around, Zanab was still coming with the heat. Cole was saying things like, oh, when it came to her passive-aggressive approach around me, picking up my clothes and keeping a tidy living space, I more so saw it as her being funny. But your character can be ripped to shreds by her. And you can extend grace by saying, oh, that's my girl. That's just how she is, and I am a messy person. So let me learn to be more clean because I'm sharing my space with someone. Like, if he could extend grace and say, okay, this is your personality and I'm willing to accept you as you are, and I still want to marry you despite the fact that you are ripping me to shreds for leaving dirty clothes outside of the dirty hamper. And I know that Zanab was saying, there were glimpses of, I guess, the Cole that she wanted to marry. Like, maybe like Cole from the pods might have looked differently than Cole in real life. Because when it comes to the pods, you're only spending as much time with this person as, the date will allow. Whereas when you're married, this person is now part of your day-to-day routine. Or in this case, they actually lived together before the wedding. So when you're in the pods, you're not living with this person. So you don't know if they keep a tidy living space. You don't know what they're like first thing in the morning. There's so many things you just don't know because the experience doesn't allow for that information to be accumulated before you say yes to them, before you propose and accept the proposal. As far as Zanab saying, like, I saw glimpses of, good, or the Cole that I believe that I fell in love with in the pods, don't stay for glimpses, stay for consistency. So if your truth is that your partner is consistently hurting your feelings, consistently tearing at the fabric of your self-esteem, and consistently taking like a sledgehammer to your confidence, figuratively speaking, don't stay. And while Bartise might not be everyone's favorite, I agreed with him in his line of questioning when he said to Zanab, so when did you know that you were going to say no? Because in his mind, it's like, if you could say all of those things at the altar, you had to have known that your answer was no before the wedding day and before you were facing Cole at the altar. I do agree with that. I could say the same for him too when it comes to Nancy. But we've already addressed him. So as far as the reunion, I believe that Cole was genuinely shocked at how Zanab experienced him based on her description of him. And I believe that he did offer a sincere and genuine apology. Just like he was crying at the altar, he was crying at the reunion as well. And I loved the fact that the only reason he said he regretted this experience a little bit is because he didn't come on this show to embarrass someone. He didn't come on this show to ruin someone else's confidence. So yeah, if this is what he did, according to Zanab, then yes, I regret this experience because I didn't come on here to totally tear somebody down. Almost forgot about blush. So one thing that I noticed was when Vanessa and Nick Lachey were doing the closing, comments, final remarks for the reunion, and they had asked that question, hey, do any of you regret participating in it? And Cole said he did regret it a little bit. Zanab was ready to go. And I'm like, dude, why are you so ready to nook if you book? Let him finish his sentence. And then once he finished it, and it was more of the, I regret what I did to you unintentionally, then we saw her soften and start to relax a little bit. And I was thinking, you have to let people finish their thoughts before you jump to react. Because what you're thinking he's going to say, or the reasoning behind what he's saying, could be completely different from what he will say. And clearly this was the case. Yeah, and Zanab said, I forgave you the moment I walked away from that altar. And I'm like, okay, then why are we still seeing so much heat and so much venom at the reunion? And no one is saying anything about it. Zanab spun this whole narrative of how terribly she was treated by Cole. And we didn't see that during the season. Not saying that it wasn't caught. I'm just saying that production chose not to air it for whatever reason, if that actually happened the way she said it did. So there were just so many errors that I could see in how Zanab and Cole approached each other. Asking to be rated and not getting the 10. Cole even asking her at one point, are you bipolar? And I'm thinking, I don't know what the context was around that question, but the way that it was edited, it seemed more of the, she's going off and she's, being ridiculous. So let me question whether or not she has a mental health diagnosis that would better explain why she's behaving this way. It was almost like you seem crazy. You should be quiet. And I don't know that that was his intent, but that was kind of how they spun that interaction. I didn't like it. I don't like that. Never like that. The idea of you can use someone's mental health, whether they have a diagnosis or not. You can use mental health as a way to silence them and make them appear that their experience and their perception of reality is invalid. Don't do that. That montage of Zanab pretty much laying down the law around how they kept their living space, that said so much more than that cuties clip though. Zanab painted Cole as this man who is counting her calories and restricting food, almost as though he is literally slapping food out of her hands. But in that cuties clip, when she admitted to only having had a banana and a scoop of peanut butter and then was preparing to eat 2 cuties because it's a serving size, he said, well, I offered you a poke bowl. Why didn't you eat more than what you're telling me you ate? And she said, yeah, but we had that last night and I didn't want that. And he asked her, are you getting wedding dress bod ready? And she had said, well, yeah. But then just a few seconds ago, she had said, oh, I can't really tell you why I'm not eating as much. So I felt like the Cuties clip was a perfect example of how they are experiencing each other very differently in their minds, and their narratives are very different. So because we didn't actually see what Zenab was describing on TV, the only ones who know exactly what was going down in their relationship are Zenab and Cole and God. So I'm not picking sides there, because I just felt like there's always missing context when it comes to reality TV shows. They can't show us everything in all of the footage that they have, because that would take more than an hour each week. Those are my thoughts, and this concludes my review of Love is Blind Season 3. No, I'm not canceling anyone, and no, I'm not diagnosing anyone, simply because diagnosis requires intensive assessment. I cannot watch an hour a week of someone's personality presentation, what have you, and say, I know exactly what their diagnosis is. That's not how the diagnostic process works when it comes to mental health. So that's why you'll never see me do that here. This is the finished look. Sorry that I couldn't finish it on my camera. Thank you in advance for your grace and understanding. If you have enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more content, and turn on notifications so you never miss a future post. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.